Welcome back to another Giant Slayer TV video. We're in full swing into patch 10.2, and oh boy, is it so much better than 10.1 and 10.1b was. There's a lot of viable compositions, and it feels overall like a fun, healthy meta. Today we're going to break down parts of the meta, though not the entirety of it, as there are a lot of viable options right now. But before we begin, do not forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting news to come, so be sure to follow our Giant Slayer TV social media channels. Let's jump back into the video with the very start of the game, Carousel. There's quite a few good options to go for right now, but most commonly contested would be gloves, rod, sword, tier, and spatula. Gloves and spatula are versatile, though gloves is definitely more contested at the moment. Tier opens a lot of options for AP-based champions, and the rod is the damage for those units. Sword can be flexible, though I'd say gloves is far more of a priority on the opening carousel. And now to the early game. Being flexible is helpful, but there's a few items that work in multiple composition. Infinity Edge is the most commonly made early game item, so if you manage to get a glove and a sword, it's definitely okay to make it. While it doesn't instantly help any magic-based champions, it can be paired with a jeweled gauntlet later for a ton of damage, so making it early is fine to do. Speaking of jeweled gauntlet, it is okay to make early, but it can limit your options a bit later in the game, so keep that in mind if you do end up making it early. Seraphs is still a strong item because it enables a lot of units like Nico, Syndra, Vigar, and Kindred in the early to mid game, and Brand or Lux in the late game. Morellonomicon has fallen off a bit in priority, but is still a strong option as Woodland Druid is a very popular comp early game, and having the healing reduction effect can let you win against them effectively. We would suggest holding out on your spatula for anything specific though. It isn't uncommon to make a light item early, but that can be a risk as you're locking yourself into that build very early. Early game units and leveling really hasn't changed. Look for hitting pairs and play what's strongest for you. Woodland Druid is still fantastic early game, but it can be a cost to your econ if you aren't getting them 2-starred fast enough. Be willing to drop them as soon as you can if you don't upgrade them in the first few PvP rounds. Champions to look for earlier mid-game are item carries like Nico, Azir, and Kindred. Vayne is also good to hold items or to keep lights for later. Defensively, Leona is still strong, though she was nerfed, so you may not keep her as long as you used to. Nasus is one of the better early game frontliners. Electric or Predators still function well in the early game and can pivot towards a full Predator composition or Berserkers. Most importantly, and this is a theme of this patch, play what you get. Don't hold on to too many expensive units, as it's easy to lose a lot of gold from holding them on your bench. Like in 10.1, you can level aggressively early game, though we don't recommend doing so on 2.1. At 2.2, it's fine to go to level 4, and we suggest looking to go to level 5 at 2.5, as staying on the leveling curve keeps you even with champion drop chance. What that means is you want to be finding 3 and 4 cost units at the same chance that others in your lobby are, as a lot of builds are focused on getting these champions. At 3.2, you're going to level to 6, and this is a good time to quickly scout and decide if you need to roll. If you're below 60 health and need to stabilize, meaning that you need to find a few upgrades, then you need to roll at level 6. We suggest only rolling down to a minimum of around 20 gold. You can also roll for 3 cost units such as Kindred 2, finding 4 cost champions, or getting your existing units upgraded. Scouting at level 6 is really important because it'll help solidify what you want to look for going into the mid game. If, for example, a lot of the lobby already has Kindred, then start looking for non-shadows or play for lights. Lots of Yorick's taken, pivot away from light if that was your game plan. Scouting is absolutely essential at this point in the game, so make sure to be vigilant in doing so. Now on to the mid game. This is where we'll talk about the specific compositions, Shadow Inferno, Rangers, and Light. As mentioned, these are not the only playable compositions, but they are ones we'll be focusing on today. Before we get into them specifically, let's talk about leveling and economy real quick. After you level to 6, whether you rolled on or not, you want to econ up to level 7. There's 2 common timings for level 7, either 3-5 or the round after Wolves 4-1. If you've rolled it all at level 6 or you've been on a low econ game, we suggest not leveling at 3-5, but instead waiting to 4-1. If you didn't roll at level 6 and have a good economy of 50 plus gold, then you can level and roll at 3-5. In both scenarios, you definitely want to scout beforehand to see what's being taken. The next leveling mark will depend a lot on your composition, board strength, and health. It's still possible to fast 8 on 4-3, but it's often better to delay level 8 in favor of rolling to stabilize your composition. Stabilizing means finding upgrades and hitting important 4-cost units. Generally, you're going to slow level to 8 unless you've been win streaking most of the game and have a lot of gold with a strong board. Then you can level earlier and go even to a fast level 9. With leveling out of the way, let's get into specific compositions, starting with Shadow Inferno. 3 Shadow, 3 Inferno, 2 Lunar is a decent mid-game for this composition. The core units are Kindred, Scion, Malzahar, Varus, and Annie. You can flex in whatever else you want at level 7, like a Yorick for 3 Summoner, or more frontline like Malphite and Nautilus. Kindred is the most important unit for Shadow, as she'll be your main carry for most of the game, so look to get her 2-starred as soon as you can, which will be preferably at level 6 or when you roll at level 7. Items can be flexible for Kindred, but Seraph's Jeweled Gauntlet and Infinity Edge are currently the best in slot you can go for, though Death Cap and Rapid Fire are good replacements if you can't find 2 glove items. Scion is your secondary carry in this build, as his ultimate can straight up win you a fight with the amount of damage it can do, and after the buff to his starting mana, it's almost guaranteed to go off every fight. Look to give him defensive items like Guardian Angel or Titan's Resolve. This build has 2 common transitions, which are to go either 6 Inferno or 6 Shadow, which we'll go over more specifically a little bit later on in the guide. We'll go over more specific level 8 and 9 late game builds in this section, so let's move on to the Rangers. 4 Ranger, 3 Warden, or 3 Ranger, 4 Warden is a common mid-game for Rangers. They have one of the weaker mid-games because a lot of the strength of Rangers is in late-game units like Twitch, Taric, Amumu, and Sin. You can play at level 7, can vary, but ideally you want a strong frontline with at least 1 item carry. While Twitch is your preferred item carry with Infinity Edge and Last Whisper, you can keep those items on a Vayne 2 or Ezreal 2 while you're looking for Twitch 2 in the mid-game. Rangers are definitely one of the harder comps to pull off at level 7, so you want to minimize the amount you roll so you're able to work towards level 8 and therefore the late game. The front line in the Rangers comp is more important in general than the back line, so after you find a Twitch, try to focus on upgrading your front line or finding a Taric and a Mumu. We'll go over the most common late game composition in the next section, but first, let's talk about Light. 6 Light, 2 Mystic is a very common mid-game for Lights at level 7. Before we get into the specifics, we need to make it clear that Lights need Yorick to work. It's much harder to do well with Lights without Yorick, specifically a Yorick 2. So make sure you scout and see if anyone's playing him and determine if it's still worth playing Lights or not. Generally, you want to roll a bit at level 6 and try to hit at least 1 Yorick, but make sure you're going to primarily roll at level 7 with the intent of getting him upgraded. Okay, with that said, let's talk about the carries for Light. Vayne is the most common base champion for Light that is your backline carry with items like Rageblade and Hurricane. You do not need to hyper roll for a 3-star Vayne in the current meta of Lights, nor do we suggest doing so as you delay your chance of finding a Yorick. Lucian can still work as your carry for Lights, but Vayne is cheaper and in a lot of ways is just as effective. If you're able to get a Light spat item, you can play for another good Light carry, which is Azir. Lights would look something like this at level 7. 6 Lights, 3 Summoner does require a spatula to make the Light item, but it's a very potent variant for the mid-game and transitioning towards the late game. Yorick Ghouls get a lot of extra health with the Summoner buff, and Azir is absolutely great as a carry. Other items you can give Azir are Jeweled Gauntlet, Rageblade, or even make him a Blade Master to pair with Aatrox. Last thing to talk about the mid-game for Lights is it's really important to look for a Guardian Angel for your Yorick. It helps him a lot in getting his ultimate off multiple times and prevents him from getting cheesed off of fights from instant kills. In general, he is your second item carry for Lights, but it's vitally important to try to get a GA on him. For the late game, we're going to go over the typical end game variations of each build we went over in the mid game. There really isn't any specifics you need to know about your economy or leveling at this stage of the game, but look to go for level 9 if you have the economy and health to do so. It's not always going to be viable for level 9, and in some cases, rolling for 3-star champions is the better play. First, let's talk about the Shadow Inferno late game. Before we get into 6 Inferno or 6 Shadow late game variations, let's mention Kindred 3. Kindred 3 isn't going to happen every game, but in the games you're able to find them, it's your win condition late game. Roll at level 8 to find them, though scout to check how many Kindreds are already taken. You can throw in 6 Shadow or Inferno if you want, but stacking frontline with Taric and Amumu and playing Mystic with it and just relying on Kindred to carry is fine. At level 9, you can play another frontliner like Malphite or go for 4 Mystic by taking out Varus and adding in 2 Mystic. 6 Shadow is one variant that you can play in the late game by selling your Kindred and giving their items to a Shadow Luck. The rest of your units can be flexible, though Amumu and Taric are 2 of the best frontliners to play, while Annie gives you 3 Inferno. If you happen to get an Inferno item, you can play that on a Lux or a Scion and flex in a Mystic, or you can just level to 9 and play the Mystic then. While Lux works best in the corner, it's dependent on your lobby, so scout the position as needed. Keep in mind that Shadow Lux may bug and do less damage than she should. The 6 Inferno variation has so many ways that you can play it. Qiyana is great on an Inferno map and should 100% be played if you're transitioning into 6 Inferno. You can easily replace Malzahar and Scion for other champions as well, like Yorick, and look to play Zyra as one of the Infernos to have 3 Summoner. It's definitely a flexible composition in the late game, but you absolutely need to get an Amumu as he is insanely important for this late game comp. You do not need Lux to play 6 Inferno, it just makes it easier to fit everything in at level 8. All of these late game options for Shadow Inferno stem from your mid game and play off of your carry, Kindred. Whether you keep them all game or swap items to Lux, they are the crux of this composition, so always try to find them during the mid game. Next up is Rangers. 4 Ranger, 2 Crystal, 3 Inferno, 3 Poison is what you want in the late game for Rangers. There's variants you can play, but this is really the best build you will play for Rangers. Level 9, you can look to put in a Karma to boost your Twitch, but the best champion at level 9 is Crystal Lux to give you 4 Crystal. Quicksilver is a great third item for Twitch, and if you're able to get a Morellonomicon, it is essential for Singed. This isn't the easiest build to get into the late game, as your win condition is Taric 2 and Singed 2. There is a possibility of going for Twitch 3, but make sure it's not your priority and focus on getting your front line and Singed upgraded first. As for lights, if you're playing Vayne as your carry, this is likely what your late game build will be at level 8. At level 9, you can flex in 4 Mystic by removing Lunar. Lunar is a potent addition to lights because the fights tend to be extended from all the healing that you get, and all of the value is therefore gained from the Lunar buff. Karma is also great at buffing your backline carry. Next is what an Azir late game looks like for light. Basically, it's the same as level 8, except you add in Karma to boost your Azir. The level 8 and 9 slot is flexible, so you can add in Karma, and Leona, or just play Mystic. While Light's win condition is generally going to be a Yorick 2, with Azir, it's possible to look for Azir 3. If you manage to 3-star him, that should be enough to secure you a win. Essentially, just delay going to level 9 and instead focus on rolling at level 8. Lastly, for any late game light build, Lux is a viable option to play if you find a light luck. Keep in mind that you most likely won't have great items on her, so don't go selling your item carry for her, so just slot in for other lights and flex into good late game units like Taric or Amumu. I want to stress this again, that Yorick is the most important champion for lights. You absolutely need him in your build, so as always, scout. That's going to be it for today's video. Now that we have a full understanding of the ranked meta in patch 10.2, let's use these last 2 days wisely to climb up before the next patch hit. What have been your favorite comp? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for checking out another video on Giant Slayer TV.